what we have to do is we have to build a virtual machine um, to load the software on, the FreeNAS software, right? So when we build these virtual machines, right, you want to make sure that you allocate 2 to 4 gigabytes of system memory, right? And also give yourself at least a minimum of a 2 gigabyte virtual disk image. That's for your boot disk. And then for the other disk drives that we build on it for rating, right, we're going to set those up as 4 gigabyte drives. These disk drives are all thinly provisioned, so they only use the space that they need, even though they're built to grow to the size that you defined them as. With ZFS, we absolutely have to use a 4 gigabyte drive. We must provision them as 4 gigabyte drives, right? So let's go ahead and do this. Let's take VirtualBox, right? We're going to make a new machine. And we're going to call it our FreeNAS primary. You can call it whatever you want. You know, there's nothing other than just following the lab. We're making a FreeNAS based on FreeBSD. And I think that's where the word free comes from, right? So go ahead and select the type. You got other kinds you can select here. You can do Windows with this. You can do Linux. You can do BSD like we're doing. You can do Solaris. You can even run AIX. This is great. You can set this up as a virtual data center. You can create all kinds of machines. In this case, we're making a BSD machine, and we're going to use 32-bit versus 64. Right? Free BSD, 32-bit. Now, as far as memory size is concerned, right, they recommend 128. If you look at our settings here, right, what I've done is I've given us a 4 gigabyte memory. There we go. Right. If you look at my machine, one of the reasons I can do this is I've got 8 gigabytes of memory in this machine, so I can do this. Really doesn't have to be that big. It could be 2 gigabytes. Right. I'll just go ahead and set it to 2. I don't need 8. We'll go ahead and set it to 2 gigabytes. It's big enough to run this. And we can run 2 machines at once. We're going to create a 2 gigabyte hard drive right now. Right? We're going to make it a virtual drive. We're going to make it a VDI, VirtualBox disk image is fine. We're doing dynamic allocation. That means thinly provisioned. Right? Looks good to me. There we go. Now the virtual machine's been created. Right? We got FreeNAS primary, FreeBSD, 32-bit. We got 2 gig of memory. Our boot order is from floppy to CD to hard disk. We're going to use an ISO image to originally boot, and then we could change this boot order. Doesn't really matter. Right. Now that we have our system on a powered off state, what we're going to do is we're select and create storage devices that we'll be using in the lab. In this case, we're going to need to add a second controller. We're going to make a SATA controller, and then we're going to add 4 thinly provisioned or dynamically allocated drives. So we go over here, click on storage. So we're going to go here, we're going to click on the word storage. It's going to bring up this capability here. We're going to create a SATA controller, right? So we're going to add a controller. Adds a new controller, right? We're going to add a SATA controller. Boom, there it is, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to add disk drives right here. Add a hard drive. We're going to create a new disk, right? Remember I said earlier we want them to be 4 gigabytes in size. You can either move the slider, or this is fine also, right? And just put it in there like that. We're going to make it a VDI, virtual disk image, and do dynamic allocation. I'm just going to go ahead and call this disk 1, right? There it is. We're going to add another. Just call it disk 2. Make it 4. Dynamically allocated. And we'll make another one. Okay, so I have 3 disks as instructed. Along with a new SATA controller, right? This 1, 2, and 3. 4 gigabyte each. And we see that we have those set up. Now what we're going to do is mount the ISO image that we had downloaded previously. This is where you have to remember where it is, right? So it says here in the attributes, change the secondary IDE, right? I'm going to go here. We got secondary, right? And then click on, say choose, click on the little disk image, right? The little CD image, and then we're going to choose it from our hard drive. I had it in documents. It is buried down here. FreeNAS, the new image, it's right here. So what we're basically doing is inserting a DVD or mounted ISO image. Now it's mounted, right? And we're going to click OK. Now, I've got my network set up where I'm on a Wi-Fi. Actually, I'm hard plugged in right now, but it works on a Wi-Fi as well. I have an Apple Time Machine that has an airport built on it, and it does all my dynamic host configuration protocol for me, right? So I'm going to go ahead and change this setup for the adapter to be an abridged adapter. Right? I want to get my network addresses from the Time Machine there, right? If you're on a Wi-Fi, you can pick your Wi-Fi, right? In my case, I'm on a hardwired Ethernet right now. I need to remember to change this if I don't plug in, right? And say OK. Right? So now I got a Pro 1000 bridged adapter. Just like the instructions say you should have. Right? So in our panel, we got our 2 gigabyte disk drive, our ISO image, right? Our new SATA controller, our 4 disk drives, right? And our network adapter set to bridged mode. We've got this machine selected. We're going to start it, and it's going to, because of the boot order, it's eventually going to find the CD DVD. And there it is. It's booting off of that image now. So while that's booting, you can see the status of what's going on in this window here. So we can go ahead and we'll just bring this to the foreground. We'll watch that. What you do need to remember is that when you click on the virtual machine, it captures your mouse and keyboard, right? You'll have different commands that you use to get out of it, right? In my case, I just have to hit my little command key here, and it'll let go of the mouse. Eventually, we're going to see an image that looks like this, and what it's asking for, the install process is asking for, is for us to point out which drive we want the boot image to be loaded on, right? So there we go. We're going to do an install. You have to use your cursor keys now, right? We're going to do an install. And sometimes these come in a different order on your machine. Please pay attention to which disk drives you're doing this load on. Otherwise, you might have to kind of start over again. Well, not really. Just need to work around it, right? In my case, you know, these are my these are my 3 drives that I'm going to use for the lab, and this is where I want the install to happen. So, yep, let's proceed with that installation. Right, so the install is running now. Be able to see it over here again. I'm just going to go ahead and set that down there so you can see it as well. Now, when the install is completed, one of the things we have to do is shut down the machine and then unmount the ISO image. Otherwise, it'll keep booting because of the boot order, right? It'll keep booting and keep, you know, trying to install the operating system, right? Install FreeNAS. In this, you can see it showing the progress of the install itself. So just to give you kind of an overview of what I'm going to do, I'm going to shut down the machine, go back to my virtual machine console for VirtualBox, select this particular virtual machine that I built, right? Select where the CD is and then eject it, and then start the machine again. And it's done. So we say shut down. Machine's halting. This window should disappear once the shutdown is complete. Done. So we go back to storage. Select the ISO image. And remove the disk. Now it's empty. Say OK. Now the machine's ready to start again. So we hit start. This time when it boots, it'll be booting from that 2 GB hard drive that we created. While this is booting up, you'll notice it's capturing an IP address on my network. That's coming from my DHCP server. And what we want to do is make a note of what that IP address is once it has been booted. You can also see these virtual machines, right? They're in your main folder. If you have an Apple, you'll see VirtualBox virtual machines. Here's my FreeNAS primary, the one that we're building. But these are the, this is the machine that I made today, right? So here's my virtual machine, right? Here's the hard disk, right? Remember I told you it'd be thinly provisioned, right? We made it a 2 GB disk, but it only took 850 megabytes of space to create it. It may grow a little bit. And then here's the 3 disk drives that we created. Notice they're only 2.1 megabytes. And once we start putting data on those, we'll actually see them. They actually grow, right? So now that our machine's running, we can see that our IP address is 172.16.1.107. by default, this machine uses DHCP. The reason you need to know this is the rest of the work we're going to do. We're not going to do this on command line. You can learn the command line if you'd like. For the purpose of this class, what we're learning how to do is how to set up a virtual data center using VirtualBox, making virtual machines, and then set up a storage solution that we can manage and go through the concepts of management.